Well, Ken Rosenthal, how did we get here that I'm talking to you about a possible elimination game for the San Diego Padres and most potentially significant changes to this coaching staff?
Marty, a lot of people are asking that question. And certainly, I was looking this up today. August 10th, they had an 80% chance of making the postseason. They were 5 games up on the Reds, 9 up on the Cardinals. And now we see what has happened. Clearly, things started to take a turn for the worse. That trip to Arizona and Colorado, they went 1-5. Yes, they've had pitching injuries. Yes, they had an offensive swoon, and at different times their offense has struggled, but lots of teams had injuries. The Cardinals lost Michaelis, Flaherty, Dakota Hudson, Carlos Martinez, right down the line. And for whatever reason, the Padres did not have sufficient depth to cover themselves, and they just sort of fell apart. It's one of the more shocking things, considering the way they looked in April, that I can remember seeing in baseball.
Do you think, is it about the talent on the field? Do you think it's about the coaching? Do you think it's that guys were like so shell-shocked at the trade deadline they didn't land a frontline starter? How did they get to this point?
Probably a little bit of everything, honestly. And obviously they're going to take a hard look at Tingler and the coaching staff. They have to in a situation like this. There's no choice. And they'll probably have to take a look at the roster too, but most of this group is coming back, or at least as presently constituted. They're all signed. So unless you shuffle some pieces, which they tried to do at the deadline, it's going to be difficult to imagine them being much different next year. So A.J. Preller's been here before. He's had difficult seasons he's come off of after big off seasons. And we'll see how he decides to go about this. It's going to be one of the more interesting storylines of the offseason.
There's a lot of consternation when he hired a first-time manager who had never managed at any level, and this is following Andy Green, who had not been a major league manager. Do you think Jayce Tingler can possibly survive this based on everything that you're hearing?
He can survive if A.J. Preller decides, hey, this is my guy and I'm sticking with him, and I want to at least give him the start of the next season to determine whether this is just an aberration or whether this is who the manager and the Padres are at this point. I like experience in managers. I know some first-time guys have done well, but we've seen some experienced managers do well too. And certain things that have gone on there, I'm not sure would have happened with an experienced manager. So, perfect world, you wanted Jayce Tingler to grow with this team, but you gave him a team where you wanted to win now. And that's hard for a first-time manager. I don't care who it is. Aaron Boone did well with the Yankees, but he had the Yankees. And I can point to other examples too, but Jayce had never played in the majors, never managed in the majors. It was going to be a challenge, and with the expectations that rose, it became even more of a challenge.
I don't mean to go backwards, but how shocked were you at that time when we found out that Jayce Tingler was going to be the guy?
I was surprised in one sense because obviously Ron Washington was the other finalist and he had managed before, but in another sense, I knew that A.J. Preller wanted his own guy. Andy Green was his own guy, but he wanted another of his own guys. And he wanted someone that he thought he could work with better than he worked with Green. And I'm sure to some degree it's worked out that way. But the results on the field are the results on the field. And Preller's going to have to decide, okay, how much of this was injuries? How much of this was guys not performing to expectations? How much of this could have been helped with a more experienced manager?
What are going to be who are going to be the popular candidates for manager, whether it's on the Padres or someone else, for the teams that make a move?
Well, there are only most likely 2 teams that are going to make moves. We've seen this week alone the Reds, the Orioles, and the Diamondbacks either extended their managers or announced they're coming back next season. That probably leaves the question marks as the Padres and the Mets. So, who will be available? Certainly Bruce Bochy is available. We all know that. Buck Showalter is available. These are 2 experienced managers. And there are other up-and-comers who teams could look at as well, or guys who have managed before, maybe guys who are managing right now that, for whatever reason, might get out of their present circumstance. So if they want to make a change, there'll be possibilities out there. There'll be guys they can go get. It's just a question of, 1, does A.J. Preller want to make that change? And 2, if he does, I don't know how you go the inexperienced route again. You have to, I would think, go with someone who has done it before.